Hi guys, it's Sienna. Welcome back to my channel. I've been really trying to post on my channel more. I appreciate all of my new subscribers. Notice that a lot of my new subscribers are coming from an old video that I made about a year ago, I think, about me expressing some of the bad stuff about living in Korea. And I've been getting a lot of questions on YouTube and my Instagram DMs about any advice or tips about foreigners coming in to Korea, which I've tried my best to answer. Also, I have been getting a couple of comments that are like, I thought you hated Korea, why do you still live there? I did not in that video say like I hate Korea. I hated some aspects of Korea, but I think anywhere you live in the world, there are things that you're going to love, there's things that you're going to hate. And I just thought more people should be aware of the things that are quite negative here, just so you know what you're getting yourself into, because I've been seeing so many videos like, when you thought Korea was just gonna be like full of the Korean K-drama oppas, but actually there's like racism and like people getting, whatever. Okay, that's not the point. A little background about me is that I grew up in about 2 to 3 different countries when I was younger, and growing up in so many different countries at a young age really impacted the way that I think now, and I'm very grateful for that because I now live with an open mind and I'm open to different cultures. However, growing up in different countries, I lived in some of the most beautiful places, Singapore, Thailand, but when I was living there, there's a lot of things about those countries that I had a hard time with, right? And that's everywhere you go in the world. So I don't want people to think I have like such a negative view of Korea. I come back because of Corona, but I'm a Christian and I believe that sometimes God leads us back to certain places that really broke us to fix us. So I came back and I hated it at first. I was like, I don't want to be here. But then over time, I grew to love it and appreciate it even more. At the end of the day, I am Korean. And yes, there's some things that I don't like about living here. But at the end of the day, I live here. I don't have a visa anywhere else. I don't plan on moving anytime soon. I personally wouldn't live here for the rest of my life, but that's just me. Hope you guys can watch my videos with an open mind that I will be living here and I'm going to tell you about the things that I don't like about here and the things, advice and stuff like that, and also things that I do love about here. With that being said, now I'm going to talk about some of my experiences living in Canada. So that was the last country that I lived in. That was the last country that, I moved to during my adult years. So I feel like I can have more say in that subject. A lot of people have been asking, did I experience any culture shocks when I moved to Canada? And of course I have. So I basically moved to Toronto for my university and I had absolutely no idea about life in Canada. I visited America multiple times. I feel like, especially living in Korea, all the Western, knowledge and media and stuff like that that's being shoved down our throats is American. Like, we go to school, we learn American English. However, the only kind of thing that I knew about Canada was that Justin Bieber was from there. So I was like, okay, at least I know something. One of my favorite artists live and is from Canada. So I wasn't completely closed-minded about moving to Canada. It just happened that way. I really wanted to move to LA, to be honest. And then I visited a couple of times and I went to look around different universities there and I absolutely loved it. I grew up in Singapore, so I love hot weather. Like in Korea right now, it's super hot, super humid, and I'm thriving. I am so happy. However, in the winter, I do get super depressed. I get cold really easily. So I'm always shivering. I'm always in pain. It's not a good look. And in Canada, I don't know, the main thing that I was worried about moving to Canada was obviously the cold weather, because I much preferred a warmer country. But it is what it is. God sent me to Toronto and I'm so glad I moved there, honestly. Things about living in Canada as a Korean that really, really, really shocked me to my core was the slow service that they get in Canada. In Korea, everything is super quick. Everything is connected to Kakao Talk. So if you don't have that app in Korea, you should definitely get it. Everything is connected to your Kakao. So for example, let's say that you want to talk to a bank and you're having problems with the bank and you want to call them and ask them about something. They most likely always have a Kakao consultant linked to their website. So you can just go there, ask them a question, and then you'll get a notification on your phone within minutes. And then a representative will call you within that day. In Canada, I had some issues with my Wi-Fi, I think, and that took days. Came back to Korea, I was trying to close my bank account in Canada because I didn't need it anymore. That took months for me to close down my account. I was so frustrated. I didn't know what was going on. It said that I can just call them, but then whenever I call them, they would put me waiting in line for hours, and I was like, I can't spend hundreds of dollars trying to call this. So I would like email them, they wouldn't get back to me. I would message their social media, and then they would send me a link where I can call on Skype, because I said I don't want to, do you have a toll-free number? And the Skype for some reason didn't work as well. So then it was a lot of back and forth. And then, when I was leaving a question, I guess the person I was talking to would clock out, and then someone would come back in, and then I would like repeat the whole process all over again. It was crazy. But that took months. And I think a lot of people are just super laid back there. Like if that was in Korea and some organization was taking that long to process something, they would get so many complaints. Like it's not even Koreans, it's a blessing and a curse that we are very impatient people. Everything has to be like pali pali. I'm like that too when it comes to everything in life, especially when it comes to my work. That's why it's like my strength and my weakness that I need to get things done super quickly, and I will always get them before the deadline. However, I'm not very good at, paying attention to all the details. So I lived with Korean roommates when I was in Toronto, and then the whole time we were just so frustrated when something happened, and then it was like, we'll get back to you in a couple of days, and then we'd have to wait a couple more days, and we're like, what? Like, do they not have a better system? But at the same time, I get it, because people, they need to clock out, and then they have their own lives, so the workers can't always be there all the time for us. But it was quite strange. I was talking to my boyfriend one time, and I was complaining about this issue. Like, I need to get something done. Like, people keep changing representatives, or they're taking forever, and he was just like, well, I mean, these people got a family to come home to, and they need to go on vacation and whatever. So I get that, but then it's like, as a Korean, that was a really stressful environment to be in. But it did teach me to be more patient and to be more laid back. But when I came back to Korea after experiencing that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is a whole new world. They can get back to me within minutes. This is amazing. Another thing that was super shocking to me was strangers were extremely friendly to you. Like, I can go out in Korea, live my life, and never talk to one stranger. Not even like, thanks for holding the door open. Like, hi. I've never asked a stranger how they are in Korea. But in Canada, I was so shocked. I think within the first day, I made so many friends. But not really friends, just like acquaintances. Like, we would like talk for like 30 minutes in the bus and then never see each other again. But those kind of incidences are so rare, and a lot of small talk that I wasn't comfortable with. It was kind of hard, but once I adjusted into the culture, it was fun. It was really fun. My boyfriend is really social, so he taught me a lot about, talking to strangers and like small talk and, looking friendly and all that stuff, because I don't look friendly when I'm out by myself. I don't look approachable, but I think that's how you just make connections in life. It's so boring if you like never talk to one stranger. But I would go out, and then if it's raining, maybe it's like, I'm pretty sure it's a Canadian thing. It's not really like a Western thing. But I can go out, and then one time it was pouring rain, and I was getting soaked at the bus station. I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to take a shower when I get home. And then all of a sudden I felt like an umbrella, a shadow of an umbrella that like came over me, and I was like, what? And it was this like lady who had a big enough umbrella to fit us both, and she was like, oh, I know, it wasn't in the weather app today. And then we were just talking. She was going through a divorce with her husband. Mind you, this was like a 12-minute wait for the bus, and I got to know so much about this lady's life. It was amazing. And then we just got on the bus, and then we never talked to each other again. But although I at times was not completely comfortable with it, I think I'm quite guarded, you know, because you never know who they are. Ted Bundy in disguise. That was, you know, very fun, and strangers always asking, how are you? And, you know, that was very, very social. I kind of miss that. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I kind of miss that. I have not spoken to a single stranger in a while. I made a ton of friends in Canada, like within my first week, but also I put myself out there a lot. I think it's the same thing in Korea. Like, you just need to put yourself out there, and then you'll make friends. But if you just come home straight from school and not really do anything, it's going to be harder. Oh my gosh, this next subject I am so passionate about just because it's wild. Okay, the next culture shock that I went through, I have it written down as voicing opinions at work. So basically, there's so many incidences where I felt so shocked and amazed by how respected we are at work as employees. Let's start from the beginning. So I worked at a sandwich, it was a very like high-end salad store in Toronto. And I was in high school, and it was just a part-time job. I didn't really take it. No one really took it seriously. And then we all ended up getting laid off during COVID. But it was really fun because all my coworkers were also like around my age. It was just a really fun experience. But we went, and then it was just a part-time job. In Korea, as a Korean, it's so easy getting a part-time job because they just require your time. You know, you can check out groceries, you can work as a server, you can blah, blah, blah. They just ask you at the interview, when's your availability? And then they work around that. But then in Toronto, it was like so many things like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What would you do if a customer was blah, blah, blah? And it's like, I don't know. It's just a part-time job, but I'm free. I got the job, and then we call that alba, which is just a part-time job. And as an alba생, employee of those part-time jobs, we're like easily replaceable. And they don't really care. Like, I could get cussed out by a customer and I just deal with it. Like, the managers don't really comfort you. It's like, well, you know, you just deal with it, you know? And if you are facing any issues, like maybe the timing isn't right, your schedule's not working anymore, okay, well, we'll find someone else, bye. Especially working at a big chain store, you are really like a little puzzle piece, you know what I mean? That's like easily replaceable. Like, I could get disrespected, I could get cussed out, and it's like, what you gonna do? Like, quit, you know? It's not a big deal. But working at that salad place, we had a lot of people, just one person actually from the main headquarters, and he came in and he basically he was being rude, but as a Korean, it was like an everyday occurrence working at a Korean. Oh my God, okay, I just remembered. I completely blocked this out of my head. But before I worked there, I actually worked at a Korean restaurant, and that restaurant was so problematic. I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place. It just popped up out of my head. But I worked there, and I was treated so horribly. Like, the manager was only a couple years older than me, and she would boss me around, yell at me. I was, being asked to hold like 3 hot stews, not only on my hands but on my arms as well, and they were so heavy. I was literally shaking, and if I don't do things quick enough, like if I was just there like trying to make conversation with a customer, what are you doing? We got dishes to clean. Like, I would get cussed out, and it was just so difficult working there. And then obviously I have a thing for getting people's approval. So a lot of my coworkers quit, but I was like, you know what? I want the manager's approval. So I worked harder. I think eventually I just ended up quitting because I just couldn't work in a toxic environment anymore. The owner will literally yell at you in front of all the customers. And, you know, as a customer in a restaurant like that, I don't enjoy the food. But at a Korean restaurant, that's very common, and people were like eating their food. My boyfriend literally like went to the back and he was like checking up on the waiters, like, are you okay? Like, it was crazy because, oh my gosh, they would literally cuss us out in front of everyone. But yeah, so I was working in that kind of environment, and then I came to the salad place and I was like, oh my gosh, everyone is so nice. They treat us like decent human beings. And the one guy came from the headquarters one time, and he was just like asking where the rice was, and we were like, oh, I don't know, because we weren't the morning shift workers, we were the afternoon. So whoever made the rice in the morning, we didn't really ask them like, where'd you put the rice? So we were like, probably in the fridge, I don't know if we have any left. And then he was like, what do you mean, blah 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 blah. And then my friend, my coworker, she was super offended from that. And then after that, she was like, okay, I'm gonna quit. I don't want to be disrespected like this at my job. To me, I was like, what? You call that disrespect? I was just used to literally working at a convenience store in Korea, which is one of the best jobs and the worst jobs in the world. I had so many old men that would come up to me and like cuss me out for not saying hi first and like making eye contact. I got cussed out one time by a drunk person, and just guys making like really rude comments like, why are you like 16 working at the convenience store? You should just pay money, you should just save up for plastic surgery and then marry a rich man. Like those kind of comments. So for me, I was like, I didn't really take much offense to that. I was, you know, obviously not happy about it, but I was like, okay. And then I just went about my day. And then the next day, another person came in from the headquarters, and then she basically was just like, yeah, like, I'm gonna quit. And then they actually got the guy to apologize to her, and I was like, this is possible? Like, people actually apologize to like employees? But he ended up apologizing, but she left anyway, which to this day, I'm like, that's so respectful that she stuck to her, you know, she stuck her ground and she decided to leave a toxic environment, because I could never. I left and I continued working, and then I moved back to Korea. But even when I was working there, one of my other friends, she was harassed at work, and she was an intern during that time. And in Korea, no one cares about the interns. No one cares. You know, she was really upset, and then she ended up going to the HR about it, and she told her what happened, and they fired the other guy that harassed her. And we were like, what? They listen to us? Interns? They listen? I think that was the one time, because my friend was having a hard time adjusting into the culture. That was the one time where she was like, okay, I'll give this 1 point to Canada. After that, I came here, and then I also worked as an intern at a company. And mind you, we had no HR team. I was being disrespected to my core. Like, you guys don't understand. Maybe I would do a whole video about it, but it was insane. I worked many jobs. I was disrespected many times. Usually I can draw the line between work and after I clock out, I'm like, whatever, and I brush it off. I was literally crying every single day after work, because it just felt like I was in high school, and I felt like I was not even harassed, but bullied, like straight up bullying. What was the cherry on top was that the main person in charge, she knew everything that was going on, because I thought she didn't know, and you know, she didn't really do anything about it, but she knew the whole time. And I was like, you knew the whole time and didn't do anything? Like, it was crazy. Unless you quit, that's it. You know, even if you report it, I wasn't being paid right. It was like way below minimum wage, and I had every right to be like, you need to pay me right. They ended up telling me that their sales were low, and can't you just, you know, get below minimum wage, blah blah blah. And I was like, no, this is literally not right. But they don't care. I feel like Korea has improved a lot from way back then, but there's still a lot of improvement to be made. I was really shocked that in Toronto, our voices were being heard. And even just as a worker at the sandwich store, they would always ask us, like, do you guys think this is effective? Like, how's the cleaning system? What do you guys think about this? Do you see that vein popping out? This is how it's making me feel like super hyped up talking about this, but they would always ask for our opinions. And even that, to me, I was like, you guys care? Next one is TTC, which is the public transportation system in Canada, is so different from the one in Korea. First of all, I was so shocked that they didn't have a screen door to like prevent people falling, and I heard so many accidents happen. There's a lot of homeless people that are shoving people, or a lot of violence in subways, which is like crazy, because in Korea it's like taking upskirt photos, like men like taking sneaking pictures of girls' underwear, like that's like the most violence that we get probably. But there was a lot of like really dark things that would happen, like out of nowhere my subway would just stop, and then there would be an announcement being like, an accident has happened at this station, please wait for a little while. And then later on I'd get home and I'd see on the news that someone off themselves or something. So that was like really, really scary. But the main thing I think was the rush hour, because I don't know if you've been to Korea, but if you come to Korea, especially certain stations, rush hour is freaking insane. Like, it's a war battle every time you go. Like, you literally squeeze in. There's no such thing as personal space. You just squeeze in. It's so funny because one time my friend was telling me, this happens to girls a lot. If you have like a shoulder bag, you need to be extra careful, because you have your bag and then people keep shoving, so your bag ends up like flying across the subway, so you gotta hold on. And literally, like, I think it was on the news one time that there's barely any oxygen in the subway, especially during the rush hours. So in Canada, my friends were like, oh my gosh, like, you don't want to. And then rush hour starts at 3 p.m. in Canada, and I was like, isn't that lunchtime? Because in Korea, rush hour is like 6 or 7. But over there, it starts at 3 and it goes on until about like 5 p.m. And people are like, oh my gosh, I want to avoid the rush hour. I go in and I still find seats. I still find oxygen. I still find air. Still find plenty of room to stand and move around. But to them, that was rush hour. And I was like, that is not rush hour. I actually really like how family is very valued there. Especially, it was so heartwarming to see that on Halloween people were leaving their work at 3 p.m. because they want to take their kids trick-or-treating, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. Another thing that's very different about the culture in Korea is that it's a lot better now, but having divorced parents or anything wrong in your family is very hush-hush. Like, I grew up and never told people that my parents were divorced because they look at you in a certain light, and I didn't like that. I don't know why that is, but that's just the case. And it's normal for people to ask you really personal questions, like, how old are you? Are you married? Do you have kids? Stuff like that. But obviously, you're kind of like crossing a line if you ask someone like, do you have any plans to have kids soon? To like a newlywed couple over there. But in Korea, it's pretty normal. But there's a whole stigma in Korea that if you go abroad, people don't talk about their personal lives. But that's not true, obviously, because I like the way that it is in when I was there, because why do I feel like I'm gonna cry? It's just, I grew up with I don't know, I feel like growing up and having to be so guarded about certain things in your stuff that's happening in your family and not being able to talk about it openly, it makes you feel ashamed. But over there, it's like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. There's so many divorced parents. There's so many, mixed households. It's like life, We don't ask them, because why would you ask, like, are your parents still together? We don't ask them that, but we talk about it. We're open about it on our own terms. And I really like that. Like I told you, that lady at the subway station or the bus station that put an umbrella over my head, she was just talking to me openly about her divorce. And that's like, I'd never asked her first, but you just talk about it, because why not? Like, there's nothing weird about it. Like, you're just going through a divorce. That kind of helped me in my healing process a little while later when I was living in Toronto, and a lot of my friends were just talking openly about certain things, and I was like, okay, I guess you can talk about it. And then I started talking about it. Very last thing that I want to talk about is how expensive it is to eat out in Canada. I guess it's also because of the tipping culture there, so you gotta pay for the meal, you gotta pay taxes, and you have to pay for the tip. So I was thinking like 30 bucks when I went out, but I'm actually going to be paying like $70. And that was very difficult in the beginning, and even when I was leaving, because it was just really difficult to adjust into that. Very expensive in Korea. Someone asked me how much they would be spending a day in Korea. I go out to eat with my boyfriend like every single day, and we eat really good meals. If you're eating by yourself, you can easily, when I was working at the company, I could easily find food for like $7 to $10, and it was good. But we're going out to eat like Korean barbecue and like all these like fancy places, and then cafes after, which is why I can't wait. But we're not going to talk about that. Dessert cafes, and then especially if you go to like really popular cafes, they usually charge a bit more because they gotta pay rent. So I spend about $50 for one day, 50 to sometimes 100, but that's for 2 people. In Toronto, like one meal out, and that was just to eat like a regular Korean food, that was $50. And I was so shocked because you could find that for like $7 in Korea. During winter, it was like, in Korea, I need to have like broth and like chicken feet and soju, but soju was $18 over there. So my like happiness level was just like dropping day by day, especially with the wind, the breeze, and the snowstorms. It was not cute. Concludes my little culture shocks that I went through in Canada. I'm sure if I was like Korean, I didn't grow up in a different country, I would have way more culture shocks, but that is it for me because this is my experience. Let me know what kind of other content you would like to see next, and please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel for more videos. It helps me out knowing what videos you are interested in. And don't forget to follow me on my socials. So I have Instagram at Sienna Hong and TikTok at sienna.hong. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.